Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's me, Jermaine, and I'm back with another episode of The Simple Truth. And I'm coming to you today with a very, very powerful message and a very powerful update. We as Americans have become so arrogant in our belief that this is the land of the free, that things can happen right up under our nose and we are not paying attention. We are so inundated by the television and by entertainment and even by work that things are happening and we are not conscious of it. We have fallen asleep at the wheel. And what I mean by that is the very rights and freedoms that we truly believe that are ours by the Constitution are eroding away and people are just letting it happen. What do I mean by letting it happen? Well, they're not doing anything to stand up to say, enough is enough. We cannot take this anymore. We cannot continue to be backed into a corner. I look at many other news resources besides the normal media outlets that we have here in the United States. I use varied amounts of sources that I pull from to get a varied view of how things are seen. And if you only take the view for what is here in the United States, you'll have a view that is not broad. It is a very narrow view. I came across an article today that has really and truly sparked me. And I need you to stay with me on this Simple Truth episode because it will be a bit longer than normal because I want to read to you this article in full. I will leave a link so that you can go and click on this article yourself. But it is important to me and it is important to you that you read this, that you listen to this, and that you become aware of what's going on. So the title of the article, let me just say this. The article itself comes from the European Union Times, EU Times online newspaper. And the article title is Obama Outlaws All Protests in the U.S. Ahead of Historic Banking Collapse. Now, this article is dated April 26, 2012. And it says, a chilling Ministry of Finance report circulating in the Kremlin today states that the Obama regime has begun instituting what can only be described as one of the most brutal assaults of human rights and freedoms after it effectively banned all protests against the U.S. government under penalty of the offender being sentenced to 10 years in the American Gulag. The Ministry of Finance of the Russian Federation is a federal ministry responsible for general finance policy and for general management in the field of finance of the Russian Federation, and the American Gulag is the name given to the U.S. prison system that holds an unprecedented 2.3 million human beings, of whom more than 100,000 work in federal and state industry programs. This doesn't mean that the usual cooking, cleaning, and peeling potatoes, but work that produces products for sale. About $2.4 billion annually and has its own trade shows. Unicor, the trade name of the government-owned federal prison industries, creating what is, in fact, the largest slavery system established in modern times by a Western nation. The specific law signed by Obama on March 8th, referred to in this report, that has raised serious concern among Russian human rights officials is H.R. 347, that passed both houses of the U.S. Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, and was not reported on by any American mainstream media, being instead first reported on by the Russia Today news service in their February 29th report titled, Goodbye First Amendment, Trespass Bill Will Make Protest Illegal. Now, I want to make a point here. I know many will hear this and say, oh, that's coming from a Russian source, so we shouldn't listen to it. Listen to the information, people. Listen. Have an ear to hear for something that is going on in our backyard, but someone else is reporting on it, not the media that you look at every day. One of the few American writers comment on this frightening new law, Janine Maloff, recently wrote in the Huffington Post, this bill, better known to those in the D.C. Beltway as the Trespass Bill, potentially makes peaceable protest anywhere in the U.S. a federal felony punishable by up to 10 years in prison. Maloff further added in her article, President Obama has claimed the right to declare anyone a terrorist or terrorist sympathizer based on nothing more than presidential opinion and ordered their assassination. No evidence is required, at least that the public can see. We are told to blissfully trust our public officials even when they are unworthy of such trust. Now our right to protest, to be disruptive, has been criminalized as a federal felony. Important to note are that Maloff's fears of the ever-growing Obama regime police state are, if anything, understated. As we can read, it is hard to conceive of a more profound constitutional violation than the torture of a U.S. citizen on U.S. soil, wrote lawyers for Jose Padilla in a petition filed Monday with the U.S. Supreme Court. A lawsuit brought by Padilla disappeared, imprisoned, and tortured by the U.S. government for 4 years, was thrown out by the lower courts on the grounds that the courts have no authority to subject the wartime actions of the executive branch to judicial scrutiny. Padilla's treatment constituted a test case for the incommunicado detention and torture of U.S. citizens by the military without any judicial process. The Padilla case, as much as any other to date, illustrates the indiscretion of democracy in the U.S. and the erection of the legal scaffolding of a police state. According to the precedent set by the Padilla case, federal authorities, the military, may unilaterally abduct, imprison, and torture a U.S. citizen in clear violation of the Bill of Rights without anyone ever being held accountable. If this can be done to one individual, there is nothing in principle preventing the government from doing it to hundreds or thousands or millions of individuals. To what those Americans daring to violate the new H.R. 347 law signed by Obama will be facing, Padilla's torture featured the trademark sensory deprivation, sleep prevention, and sadistic round-the-clock abuse associated with Guantanamo, CIA black sites, and other torture camps operated by the U.S. government. For 10 months, Padilla's mother was not even informed whether or not he was alive. Padilla's Supreme Court petition includes a description of his treatment. His only human interaction was the interrogators or the guards delivering food through a slot in the door or standing watch when he was allowed to shower. The windows of Mr. Padilla's cell were blackened. He was subjugated to prolonged periods of constant light and complete darkness. He was unable to fulfill his religious obligation to pray 5 times a day. Removal from his cell entailed additional sensory deprivation with blackout goggles and sound blocking earphones. All outside information, papers, radio, television was prohibited, and his Quran was confiscated. Padilla was denied a mattress, blanket, sheet, and pillow, left with only a steel slab upon which to sleep. His efforts at rest were hindered by deliberate banging, glaring artificial light, noxious odors, and extreme temperature variations. Interrogators injected Mr. Padilla with substances represented to be truth serums, shackled him for hours in excruciating stress positions, threatened to transfer him to a foreign country or Guantanamo, where he was told he would be subjected to far worse treatment, and even threatened to kill him. In 2007, an expert clinical forensic psychologist determined that there was a 98% chance that Padilla had suffered brain damage as a result of torture during his confinement, and explained that he now exhibits a strong indication of cognitive impairment. Important to note is that even though the U.S. Supreme Court has been asked to rule on Padilla's case, they have not agreed to hear it, meaning that if they don't, the horrific precedent set in this case will in fact become the law of the land, allowing any American citizen to be jailed and tortured at will by their government without either charges being filed or any way to defend themselves in court. American attorney Glenn Greenwald, the former constitutional and civil rights litigator and author of 3 New York Times best-selling books, in his most recent column holds little hope for the U.S. Supreme Court allowing the Padilla case to be heard, and notes the complicity of the U.S. legal system in helping both the Bush and Obama regimes to establish a totalitarian police state. One of the most amazing statistics of the last decade: not a single war on terror victim, not one, whether foreign or American, has been permitted to proceed in an American court in an effort to obtain compensation for illegal treatment by the U.S. government. Instead, American courts have unanimously dismissed those cases at the outset without reaching their substance. Even when someone knows and admits that the U.S. government abducted a totally innocent person, even when everyone knows and admits that the U.S. government abducted a totally innocent person and shipped him off to Syria to be tortured, as is true for Arar, American federal judges shut the courthouse door in his face, accepting the claims of the Bush and Obama Department of Justice, DOJs, that to allow the victim to obtain justice for what was done to him would be to risk the disclosure of vital state secrets. They accepted his Kafka secrecy claim even after the government of Canada published to the world a comprehensive report detailing what happened to Arar. It's A-R-A-R. Greenwald's reference to Mahir Arar, a Canadian citizen who was abducted and tortured by the U.S. government for no reason whatsoever, who has since received an official apology from his nation's prime minister and was awarded $9 million in compensation by Canada. To the reasons behind the unprecedented crackdown on the freedoms of the American people lies in the fears of the Obama regime to the coming historic collapse of the entire global banking system and the associated upheavals and chaos it will cause to the elite ruling classes of the Western world. Not being reported to these Western peoples about this coming banking collapse by their mainstream media organs is its cause lying in over 230 trillion in what are called derivatives due to be paid out upon the economic collapse of the European Union and or the United States, which equals, mind you, approximately 3 times the entire world economy, but that no government in the world has the money to pay for. The worst offenders of the historic banking collapse are, by far, the top 25 American banks, which according to the December 31st, 2011 report for the fourth quarter listed their combined assets at nearly 8.7 trillion, but their combined derivative exposure at over 230 trillion. So dire has the situation regarding the global banking system become, this report concludes, is that in the last 6 months alone, 611 of the top bankers in the West have resigned their offices and went into hiding, while at the same time, the insider selling of American stocks by their elite classes has reached levels not seen in over 10 years. The famous U.S. civil rights leader Malcolm X once warned the American people, and I quote, "If you are not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing," unquote. Sadly, his words have not been heeded, and as the United States falls ever deeper into tyranny, one indeed wonders when, or even if, these once great people will ever awaken before all is lost. Ladies and gentlemen, the simple truth is that we need to wake up, sound the alarm, and know that what we are seeing is not all that is happening. It is important that you really and truly pay attention to the various news sources that are out there and learn to read between the lines. This has been a longer than normal Simple Truth update, but I thought it was very important that you get this information. I will leave a link to this article, but you'll be able to read it in full for yourself and then reference other articles. I just implore you, I beg you, wake up, pay attention to what's going on. Don't remain asleep at the wheel, because if you do, there's a wreck bound to happen. This has been the Simple Truth, and as I always tell you, the simple things are oftentimes the most profound, but yet they are the most difficult to put into practice and to actually do. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be back with you again real soon.